Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.
This is The Power of Words. I'm Talena Lachelle, Queen, and I'm sitting here with Leah Lyric Jackson. We like to say, we just got a new name for her, actually, coined by Felicia Sherrill. We're going to call her Leah Lyric.
Leah Lyric.
Leah Lyric, which, of course, she said that because she's an alliteration kind of person, right?
Yes.
We understand. All right, so earlier today, I introduced Leah Lyric as a creative. And we learned from your bio and from your expression that you are very much so a creative. And I'm wondering about, we learned one more thing. We learned that you haven't done any performances for the last 5 years. You've been tending to family. And this question is really about centering yourself in that, right? So you shared a lot of stuff with us today. We know that you're a parent of adult children.
Yes.
Okay, so adult sons. And we know that your father transitioned, right? We know that you are being a caretaker. There's a lot of things for a creative for any person to fold in at one time. So I want to ask you, what about your writing has been helping you to transverse that space?
As a writer, or as a creative, but I consider myself a writer. I do a lot of different types of writing. A lot of ideas swim around in your head. A lot of songs or words or phrases swimming around in your head all the time. And when life be lifing, as they say, you are sometimes required to compartmentalize. And unfortunately for a creative, especially one who works with words, they don't stop. They don't want to be put in compartments. And how that has worked for me is, or how that has helped me in terms of the creative process, I have started using other forms of my creative self that I had no idea. So out of the pandemic, my father transitioned the end of 2019, so it was right before we got knee deep into the pandemic. And then I was also an Iyawo, which in the Yoruba tradition, or in Santeria, if anybody's familiar, that is when you go through an initiation process that lasts for a year and 7 days. And you're basically sequestered without communication, really interaction with other people for a lot of reasons, mostly you become a baby again. And so I was a Yawo. My father transitioned and the world shut down. And during that time, I had no idea what was going on in my brain, but I was like, I can't write. So I started sewing with my hands. I don't use a machine. I got a B+ in home economics in 7th grade, so I'm not exactly the best when it comes to thread and the bobbin. But I started sewing, and I started taking apart a lot of the things that some of my father's clothing, his clothing that my aunts had brought back from Nigeria, and I started sewing pillows for my family members as ways to, just to share a piece of him with them. And then people started giving me material because they knew I was sewing, so I'm sewing. I called myself, I was Betsy Rawson. And then I started making jewelry. I've never made jewelry before in my life. I've never beaded, anything like that. And here I am utilizing some parts of my creative, doing poetry with my hands, which I had no idea that I had to do that. And coming full circle, how does writing, or how does my creative part, how has that been helping me through this process? I think it's keeping me very sane. It's keeping me focused on why this is a gift and why it should be shared, and why it should be shared not just in a community like this, but also in everyday language. So words are very important to me the knowledge of understanding of words, but also the fact that now we have these banned words, which, trust me, I'm writing a piece about those 241 words, or 200, I keep changing the number, 245 words, I think it is, banned words. So that's what's been helping it with me with this transition into the next part of my lifespan. I'm also a therapist, so I use words and language like lifespan. Is that I have to get it from here down to help keep my brain sane, and that's what I've been utilizing. But also, I've been very grateful that God has allowed me to find other ways to create poetry or create art, and sharing those things. So, soulful stitching. Everything that comes, it's like I put a lot of love and patience into it. And then I said, I'll start, hey, somebody wants me to sew something for them, I'll start doing that for them. And people start asking me to make pillows. And I'm like, this is something that I never thought could be a part of, who I am as a creative. So that's been an evolution during this time. But yes, I'm ready to get back on the microphone. I answered the question, but
yes, ma'am. Look, whatever comes out is right. So that was actually going to be my next question. Are you ready? First of all, thank you for letting us be first and letting Mercy Inc. be the place where you reemerge.
I've been watching what you've been doing. Well, let me. Yeah. So the conversation. I feel like. Should we use the microphone? Is that better if we use the microphone?
It's a recording.
Oh, recording. Oh, okay, great. Sorry about that. So, as I was saying, Talena,
yes,
was that I've been watching Wordseed Inc., and I've been watching what you've been doing over that period of time, because you really started to, I think, branch out, and then I think as your role became more prominent as the poet laureate, you started to interact with folks that I've shared stage with and that are my friends in working in poetry and doing poetry. But I've been watching what you've been doing, and I wanted to put my energy in a place that I knew respected. This is as a craft, and as a community, and also as a foundation of strength, because what you share and how you present to the community is something that we can trust and feel safe and feel secure in. So it's my privilege and pleasure to be a featured artist, and being back on the scene, as it were, as a part of anything that you have created, or part of your community has created here in Paterson. And I'm just very blessed that I crossed paths with you. Happy.
You are hired. Just hired her. You're hired. I wrote that script for her earlier today. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you. And I just made a joke about it because I was feeling tearful. That was my coping mechanism to not let my orbital lobes malfunction. So you also talked about in your poems, more than one poem, rhythm. And you opened up with a poem that was the beat, the drum, the beat, and it was really lyrical. It was really incredible. And you've done that in more than one space. And let's talk about that first, and then I have more, okay? Tell me about that.
Okay, so I wrote that poem in 1990, 97. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk, it was a Tony Award-winning Broadway play. Savion Glover, who's New Jersey's own, Savion Glover created the artistic, and also my mentor, my friend Reggie Gaines, wrote the libretto, or wrote the poems and the poetry that is a part of the performance. Anyone familiar with Bringing the Noise, Bringing the Funk? Okay, it's tap dancing, poetry, rap. At any rate, there's a lot of understanding of how we as artists, or how we as humans, have been able, especially Africans that have been in the diaspora, how we've been able to communicate with one another without knowing and having the same language. How those of us who were taken from places that seem so far away, and I can meet someone that is from Brazil or someone who is from China that looks like me and you, and their understanding or their language, there's something in the cadence, there's something in the spirit, there's something in the DNA, and I wanted to convey that. And I think Noise Funk really spoke to that in terms of tap dancing being an integral part, because it's from the boot dance in South Africa, and there's so many different other dance forms that originate really with Africans and that have been in the diaspora, because we've kept our lineage, we've kept our history through the drum, and the drum being a part of how people communicated without verbal communication. So if those of you who are not familiar with history in terms of how we got all over the world, people that look like us, is that drums signified so many different things. So if you don't know the story of the liberation of Haiti, this is, we're coming up on the 400 year. This year is, we celebrate the 400 year, I believe, liberation of Haiti. And if you know anything about Toussaint Louverture, we have young people, so I'm always like, we need to, I want you to know these names and look them up. Google is your friend now. They were called to come together to liberate themselves, self-liberation through drums, and to tell that story and to know that story. And the repetition, I hope that you heard, there is a rhythm, there is the drum beat, the drum beat, the drum beat. It's very important because you could feel that. You don't have to be a quote unquote poet to feel that drum beat, because we all have a heartbeat. We all have a heartbeat. And so therefore, that means that we are all connected, period. And I am very conscious of that, especially as I wrote it. But I'm gonna tell you, I was pretty much, people only like to use the word possessed, but when I wrote that piece, it came to me as a possession.
I get it.
I was not writing it down. I actually, back in the day, there was a thing called tape recorders. Tape recorders. You had to press play, you had to press record, both at the same time.
That's true.
Just saying.
Ancient technology.
Ancient technology. So I had a tape recorder, and I was in my college dorm, and because this was, song was coming. Press record, and I just started spitting. So everything that you heard, everything that is written down now, I didn't write it. I wrote it, but I didn't write it. It wrote me, pretty much. It wrote me. So that was how it came about. It was the ancestors, it was the people, I call them the people. They wanted me to say what I had to say, and I'm so grateful that I'm still able to move people with that poem, and that people are still moved by that poem. And to remember that we all are humans, we all have a heartbeat, so therefore the drum is inside of us, period. Because if you ever listen to your heartbeat, you know that there's a rhythm there. So that's how we're all connected. Don't ever forget that.
That's a good place to clap right there. So obedient. That's so obedient.
Yes, they're wrapped.
All right, so that's one through line in your work, was that rhythm and that drum. So we appreciate you, and I saw you relive that moment of recording it with your foot tapping. So I really appreciate that visceral response that you have to your poetry. There's another thing that the other through line of many is your Blackness and your motherhood. And I would like you to talk about the intersection of Blackness and motherhood, especially as it pertains to being the mother of Black sons.
Oh, thank you. That's a very loaded question for me. When I say loaded, I mean I could talk all day long. My sons made me the woman that I became. I became a mother at 25 years old, and although 25 doesn't seem to be young, for me and my experience, I was young. I know nothing about birthing no babies, okay? That's a quote from Gone from the Wind. Gone with the Wind. If you don't know Butterfly McQueen. I'm just gonna say these names so that y'all just go, oh, that lady said something that day. My blackness. So this is interesting because I identify as a black woman. However, I am multiracial or multi-ethnic. No, I'm not multiracial, only one race. I'm multi-ethnic. And I was raised by a very learned, genius level black father. My father was he was a major part of my life. And so my blackness came up from, I grew up having African art around us. I call it the Jackson satellite of the Smithsonian African American Museum of Art, because I grew up around books and artwork and art and anyone who came through my home, and one of my best friends that we've been friends since 6th grade, she could tell you, you would get a black history lesson if you came into Jack's, in a book, and probably pencils and pens as well. I digress. So, the political is personal, and the personal is political. For me, when I write poetry, or the poetry that I really, stand by, because I write all types of poetry, but the poetry that means so much to me, and I'm very forceful with, is that really punctuates, and blackness is a state of mind. It's not necessary, it's not an ethnicity, it's a state of mind. And therefore, as I was being raised by this very strong father and a strong mother as well, in her own right, this emphasis on being very proud to be a black person, a black woman, or a black person, I would say, but definitely a black woman was first and foremost in my upbringing. So I was never afraid. In fact, in high school, you co-sign if you remember this, but they used to call me Mrs. Malcolm X in high school. I didn't care if they were making fun of me. I wore it proudly. That's right. All power to the people. Then I became a mother. Oh boy. Niken Nechem Ankmater. That is my son, my eldest son's name. It transformed me in a way that my mother said, "You're never going to sleep the same way again." And I didn't understand what she meant until I had my son. And he became everybody's baby, but he was diagnosed with autism when he was 4. And I said, we got the diagnosis because it is a family thing. And he raised me. He allowed me to make mistakes. He allowed me to stumble and fall and learn with him, especially being a new mom, and then at that time, autism didn't have as much awareness in the community as it does now, which I'm very grateful for, and definitely had a part in that. But as Black mothers, we didn't have the support groups and the support advocacy that we have now, which is really grateful. So here I am, and I wasn't a single mom. His father was a part of his life and a part of my life. However, motherhood became a real big badge of honor for me. It allowed me to slow down, because in all of my Blackness, I was, all over the place. I was, running here and running there, and I was part of this organization. I was doing this, and the New Eurekan, as you heard, I was a New Eurekan Slam, New Eurekan Poetry Grand Slam semi-finalist. I was on my way to doing deaf poetry and everything, and then God said, nope, you got a job to do. And then I became a mother again of another Black boy, after saying, okay, maybe I'll get the girl, And I say this, and I wish they both were here. My youngest son was supposed to be here performing with me. He waited to the last minute to do some work. He's in his second semester at Essex County. And so he's like, oh, I have these 2 bibliographies I have to do. I can't come. But when I had my second son, I said, oh, wait a minute. What is my role? So this is what being a mother taught me, to respect men in a different way than I had previously. I, as a Black woman, not saying that I didn't respect men, but I just thought highly of women, let's just say.
Thank
a little
you.
more highly of women. I'm different now. I understand that you have cognitive abilities and you have emotions and you have mood swings and all of the things that make you human. And I credit my sons for teaching me that in that experience. Another lesson that having Black sons has taught me is how to be vigilant. Because I'm their mother, I don't try to take the role of father. So what I do is I've created the village. They have a father, and I think as fathers as well, if they're thinking, they create the village as well. But as mothers, we really, it's curating a village. Right. It's curating a village and a community. So where the bridge or the convergence is that I have been able to pick people that can be instrumental in their lives and teach them things that I cannot teach them. Teach them things that their father cannot teach them. Then we get to what we see happening to Black boys and Black girls. So I want to stress that it's not just Black boys that are getting killed in the street, murdered by police, brutalized. However, as a mother, having the talk with your sons is a little bit different when you have a person with autism, okay? Because he's verbal, he is high functioning, but I get concerned because my son is almost 6 feet tall and he's not always aware of his surroundings. So couple that with, you're not aware of your surroundings, you're a tall, Black man, you're a young person, walking and just trying to be in your life, trying to be in your space. And that part gets me nervous every once in a while. I'm always telling him, I need you to have your head up. I need you to be, because oftentimes our kids are like this, or our children in that. But being conscientious of your surroundings and knowing who you are, so that role of protector, that role of nurturer shifts a little bit to, okay, how am I going to empower him? What am I going to teach him, and how am I going to teach him human-wise so that he stays alive? And it's scary for any parent when, just in terms of, but with our young men, it's a crime that they cannot be free. So that part is very, very emotional for me. And I just said this to a friend. I'm grateful that I can see a little bit of innocence still in both of my sons, because I have curated that community around them. And you say those prayers. My grandmother did it. I know my mother prays for her grandchildren, but I also have a nephew. It's like this generation, it's all male energy, and I'm appreciative of it. So that does add to why I'm vigilant especially when I do bullying, because men are they're the ones that are going to be out there. Hopefully, they're the ones that are going to be spreading the seed for lack of a better picture, and therefore, if we could create bulletproof Black babies, it's going to start with our men. So that's where I believe that converges between the two.
I won't keep you here all night. You are so interesting.
Thank you.
You're so aren't you glad to have the talk back so you can hear where this poetry comes from? Yes. This is my favorite part. I mean, we love your art.
Yeah.
but having the talk in the end,
Conversation.
the conversation is critical. It's a critical conversation. That's actually the name of this. We're having critical conversations. Now, this is my last question. What is your favorite poem that you have written, and what is your, this is two-part, and what is your favorite poem written by someone else?
Okay.
Let me give you this. Eve, we need a new sound system. A new sound setup. Okay.
My favorite poem.
Yeah, lean into this.
My favorite poem that I have written. There was a poem that I wrote a long time ago, which was my poets. For those of you who end up going to poetry events, and poets that call themselves poets have a signature poem. Our signature piece. Yes, that is our signature. That's what we're known for, right? So I had a signature piece called "It Ain't You." God love it. It ain't you. God loved me. I used to do this. I used to spit this because I was a slam poet. You don't use paper when you're a slam poet, or you could, but you gotta be real good at it. So. It Ain't You was a poem that I wrote, one of the first pieces that I wrote that people started to know who I was, like lyric. Yeah, she says that, she does that poem, It Ain't You. And it's basically telling young sisters or young people, my peers, my women peers, that ain't you. Like, you don't have to look and do what you see in the videos, because at that time it was video vixens and very concentrated on looking a certain way and behaving a certain way. It's like, that ain't you. And we can talk about that in present culture, unfortunately, that we see all these images of women that are completely opposite of what womanhood, or what I would hope womanhood could be fostered to be created. So it ain't you. And if you invite me again to come, go searching for my poem.
Wait, give us two, 3 lines. It ain't you. You know,
I wrote this in 1996. Wait, like I was about like, that ain't you. Oh my gosh, I wish Barbara was here. You're gonna have to forgive me, because. And I had there's some really good lines in there too. Like, let's puppy get your hands on it. Like, I had the whole thing, everything. Oh my gosh. You're gonna have to allow me to go back, because once I see it, then it comes back. So I promise you, I'm going to find that and I'm gonna record it. And then I'm gonna send it to Selena and she can put it up and be like, remember if you was there. The other piece, so I have a number of different I have a lot of poetry friends, a lot of friends that are poets that do it, as who they are. So Jessica Care is one of my favorite poets. She's also is my mentor, but she's my big sister. Jessica Care, who is now the current poet laureate of Detroit. Jessica Care, also historically, she was the first poet to win the Apollo Amateur Night. Used to be on Saturday nights, right, into Sunday. You could stay up that late. I am dating myself so bad, but I look good though. Jessica Care, still doing her thing. She is amazing. So she won the Apollo, I think, 4 weeks in a row. And to win the Apollo Amateur Night with poetry, yeah. So she has a poem called The Black Statue of Liberty. And she also has another poem that I love called The Words Don't Fit in My Mouth. Those are two of her, actually The Words Don't Fit in My Mouth is the title of her very first self-published. And she has a publishing company called More Black Press as well. So Jessica Care, Black Statue of Liberty. Do I know that by heart? Absolutely don't. I wish I would have known that, you were gonna put me on the spot. So, I knew, I used to know, and The Words Don't Fit in My Mouth was actually one of my favorite poems. And I feel so terrible. I'm gonna text her and be like, I was put on the spot to know your poems. But anyway, you can find it online.
I just asked you who it was.
Okay. I wasn't required to know it. My own, I forgot. But yeah, and Reggie Gaines, he is one of my favorite poets, and his work is transformative in terms of he educates while he's, giving you a lot of history in his work. So if you don't know any of these names that I'm saying, please, definitely I would like you to Google it, where we used to have to go to the library and use the card catalog, the Dewey Decimal System and things like that in the ancient times. You can Google it now, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Leah Lyric, I messed it up. Okay.
That's okay.
Leah Lyric. We can say Lyric
yes,
Leah too, right?
Yes.
Leah.
It depends on who you ask, it depends on
Leah. We appreciate you. Your artistry is important. It is provocative. It is necessary. And I am very grateful that you have made a commitment to continue writing, and we trust you to continue to help us see the world in new ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
So thank you for your artistry and all of the things that you have done. Go ahead and stand for your applause.
Thank you.
So we're here every month on the 4th Thursday at 6:30. If you enjoyed being here tonight, and I think you did because you're still here, you didn't walk out, come back again. Next month is National Poetry Month, and what I mean by showing off is we have 10 features up here. We invited everybody. We're just gonna be up here just having a really good time. So come back and play with us. Eve will be here, Felicia will be here, I'll be here, the whole Word Seed board. We have Rashad Wright. We're just inviting the whole family. We're gonna have a good time and cake.
No, right.
National Poetry Month. National Poetry Month, poetry and cake. All right, peace and blessings, everybody. Have a beautiful everything.